Now we are bad kids, all my friends are bad kids, product of no dad kids, kids like you and me. Bad kids, ain't no college grad kids, living out on the skids, kids like you and me. At home, heroes and easy flip time.
Welcome to the first segment of Talk Wrench. For some of you, this might be the most interesting part of my vlog. For some of you, this might be the most boring part of my vlog. So, how do you find out which category of people do you fall into? Do you love this or do you hate this? If you're one of those people who love tools, you see one of these and you're like, wow, how does this work? Where can I use this? Or you see one of these and you're like, hey, I want to have one of those. I know exactly where you use them. This segment is for you. If you're one of those people who looks at this and like, I have no clue where this goes, I have no interest in having one of those, or I don't want these, this is not for you. If that's the case, no hard feelings. I totally understand. It's not your piece of cake. See you next segment. Right, before I go any further with this episode, I got a few acknowledgements and appreciations to make. Notice my cap, it's a snap-on cap. Thank you very much. What happened is, the main reason why I'm doing this segment is because I'm starting to own my first ever set of snap-on tools. I'll get into that in a bit, and this is what I got as complimentary. I got this cap, which I'm wearing right now, and this one. So thank you very much to James and Ann Eastman in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I purchased this tool from. This lady is running a beautiful tool truck. If you're ever in Wichita in Kansas, please make sure that you go and get in a truck and see what's around. And it's very convenient. Most of the aviation places she comes and visits. It's a really nice old truck. You might enjoy that as well. So again, thank you very much for the cap, and also for the decal for my toolbox. This is definitely going to go on my toolbox, and thanks very much. Also, another acknowledgement. Thank you very much, Bob Bishop. Notice the sweater I'm wearing is from Texas Turbine Conversions. I just got here from Texas, from Denison in Texas, where they do the Texas Turbine conversion. I'll tell you what they exactly do. They convert Caravans into Honeywell TP331 powered aircraft, which is a conversion that they do. That'll be a separate segment which I'm gonna do. Anyway, thanks very much for the sweater. Alright, that'll be the end of my acknowledgements. Let's get into business. So people who know me from the industry might already be going nuts like, what are you doing wearing a snap-on cap? You hate snap-on. Just to confirm that I do not hate snap-on, and it's not just a hate, it's a love-hate relationship. Now, also they might be saying like, now you got the snap-on tools, you are calling it a love-hate relationship. Not really. Here's the deal. I always loved snap-on. We can all agree that they manufacture great tools. It's just a matter of that they're so pricey. They have a really hefty price tag. Now you might be going like, isn't that always the case? The issue I had with snap-on was it was too expensive for a mechanic as a beginner to afford. That's it. Nothing else. For a mechanic to be a starter and to afford a snap-on, that's almost impossible. Talking about tools is gonna take me forever. It's one of my favorite topics, and it's one of the topics that I can digress so easily and can go on and on and on without getting to a point. So to make it simple, I'm just going to stick into the snap-on tools that I bought, and I'm just going to give you a few differences of things that I do not purchase from Snap-on and things I do purchase on Snap-on. Disclaimer, and I must make a note saying that there might be some die-hard Snap-on fans out there. Some people might be saying anything that does not have a Snap-on tag on it does not go near an aircraft. I can respect that. I totally understand that, and this is just my opinion, and you do not need to necessarily take my opinion as yours. I mean, this is just what I think, and I think some people might benefit from what I have to say about how to select tools, which tools you might need to buy, expensive ones, which ones you can kind of cut your costs on. Because as a beginner, as a person who started as a mechanic with a really, really low grade salary, I do totally understand how hard it is to afford a toolbox and things you need to have in your toolbox. It's very confusing because people used to tell me gear does not matter, and some people told me gear does matter. If you ask me, it's a 50-50 thing. You do need to have the gear, but the quality of the gear doesn't necessarily make you a good mechanic. So it's a balance between the two that makes you a good mechanic. So as a good mechanic, you need to know how to choose, when to choose an expensive tool, when not to, or when you can actually skimp a little bit down on a tool that is not necessary to become an expensive tool. So here's the guide. Very simply speaking, my theory is tools aren't precious. Yes, I said it. Tools aren't precious. They are not. Wait before you criticize. They are important. I have a lot of respect for tools, but that should not stop you from using a tool for its use. We have a saying in Sri Lanka saying that if you have a boat, use the boat to cross the river. Do not carry it on your head because it's precious. The same theory applies for tools. Why I'm getting into this is I've seen beginners starting to purchase Snap-on or expensive tools and not using them. So to me, that toolbox is more like a jewelry box than a toolbox. Here's point number one. Purchase tools at a price that you're comfortable with. It doesn't matter which make it is, what kind of quality it is. Purchase it at a price where you're comfortable to use them. If you buy a set of $250 sockets and that's all the money you earned for so many years, the chances are you're not going to use those tools on anything. You're just going to look them as precious jewelries. I understand that. Do not purchase that set of sockets. Go and purchase the $10 sockets. Now that way you are getting the work done. You're becoming a competent mechanic. When time comes for you to be able to afford expensive tools, that's when you go for an expensive one. It's as simple as that. So in that theory, I have very few Snap-on tools. In fact, I never had any. I always bought ones that I thought were affordable and that I was comfortable using with. For the main reason being, I was mostly working on float planes and we had a tendency of losing tools at a rate. So I wasn't comfortable owning a set of Snap-ons where my mind is now predetermined thinking that I might lose this tool, whereas my concentration is not now on the job, it's on the tool. And that's exactly why I'm constantly telling you, you should be purchasing any tools that you're comfortable with. However, here's the catch. Certain tools you can only get from Snap-on. Specialty tools, I call them. Or sometimes you get tools from other companies, it's not as good for that given job. That's when you break that rule, and although how expensive it is, you will have to or you should buy Snap-on tools. I'm gonna leave that discussion right there and just show you the tools that I've purchased so that you can get an idea. So this is the first tool that I recommend you buy from Snap-on. It's a long reach set of diagonal pliers, commonly known in America as dikes. It's one of those things that I only find Snap-on to make the really good ones, and this particular version here has a flat profile into it, which apparently I got to learn was the newer version of it. The older version I remember had like rounder hands on it, but this one has flatter, giving more better access, like between tubes and all these places you can quite easily reach with this. It's kind of like a must-have, but if you're a beginner, if you're a first-time person who's going to purchase tools, I wouldn't recommend you to buy any of this. Just go for an ordinary set of dikes. This is another one which I bought, which is a smaller place. So buy one of these. This shouldn't cost you more than $10 to $15, even if it's $20. But this right here is close to $40. So you see the price difference we're looking at. Okay, so this is my first tool I purchased. It's a Snap-on long reach diagonal cutters. It has a part number written in it saying 808CF or 808 Charlie Foxtrot. Alright, now I'm getting into the second tool that I purchased. It's actually a set. It's a set of low profile swivel joint sockets. So this particular one has 6 sockets into it and they're swivel joints. So this is a 9/16. It's a swivel joint and it's a low profile if you look at it. Now again, should I own this in my first set of tools? Definitely not. Another person might ask me, what's wrong with having a swivel joint and put a socket on top of it? Well, if you're running on your first set of tools, that's how I would recommend you to use. But there would be instances where you can't use a swivel socket and another socket on top of it because the overall length is going to be so high that you won't be able to use it in tricky locations, especially if you're going to use it with an extension, okay, like this. So for that reason, when it comes the time that you're able to afford one of these, this is something that you would buy and you'd have to buy. So it's now that I'm purchasing one of those. So it's again, I found out that Gear Wrench, another company, made them as well. I haven't seen them, I've seen them online. If that goes very well with you, go for it by all means. But it's only Snap-on that I've seen them doing it properly, and Gear Wrench, and you won't find many brands. And this is quarter drive, by the way, so you won't find many quarter drive low profile swivel sockets around. So again, about the set, it's really nice. It's got a magnet in it. This is the way it comes, so that way it goes in quite easily into the set. This whole set costs around $230 for the whole thing, including the base, and it has a part number in here as well in case you want it, right on the bottom, which starts with a P. The next tool is not something that I planned to buy, but after getting into the truck and seeing it, I couldn't resist buying it. So this is known as a low profile ratchet set. Here it is. So it's got a ratchet and it's got a set of sockets in here. So here's how it works. So you got your ratchet in here and then you slip your socket inside it and it goes inside. So see the thickness of the whole socket. So this gives you more close tolerance or low profile for you to reach certain areas. Very popular with aviation people. That's what she said exactly. Aviation people love this kind of arrangements because we got a lot of tricky access areas. So this is gonna be a time saver. It's expensive, guys, but I highly recommend it. Sockets go from a range of 9/16 till 3/16 of 10 sockets. So it's quite a range of sockets. They're all 12 point. And they're short sockets, so it's quite easy for access. And it also comes with a screwdriver bit. So in case you want to fit in a screwdriver bit into it, you can do that as well. Now, I'm one of those people, I hate carrying so many tools for so many different things, especially if it's an AOG situation, I had to go outstation. I would love to use this ratchet set as an ordinary ratchet as well. The problem with this ratchet set is that you cannot fit an extension into it. Like, there's no way you can get an ordinary extension into this because it doesn't fit into this, but it does go into the socket. Right. So it goes in a socket like this, but it does not hold up on this side. If we had a way that we could fit in an extension into this socket and use it with these sockets. All I need is another set of deep sockets and these sockets, so that way I'm complete. I don't need to carry an additional ratchet and additional weight, because we can utilize the same. So the way to overcome that is to purchase drill impact drivers, which has a hexagonal adapter with a quarter drive adapter on the other side. So basically how it works is you put your screwdriver bit in here, and then you can put this extension kind of thing and then attach your quarter drive socket. Now it's got an extension. So what I did was I bought this one and as well as a shorter one as well, so that way it'll give you a shorter length if required. Okay. If you need any additional lengths, you can use the ordinary extensions on top of that, so that you can get to the point that you need. It's best to buy the 6-inch one, which I bought in here, and the this is like a 1-inch one from the dry point in here. Okay. These again, they are not snap-on. They are ordinary. This is an Irwin, this is a DeWalt. So the point is, it doesn't necessarily have to be snap-on because it's snap-on. Only the special tools that I do buy snap-on. Okay? Alright, just to finish up things over the close tolerance ratchet set, I have done a $10 modification on this. Just bought a set of magnets and pasted it up behind the original packaging got from Snap-on, so that way I can create a shadow board for myself. So that's the reason why all these sockets are holding up and going back to place. Okay, so it can be put back in quite easily. So this doesn't come that way. It's just a matter of a tube of super glue and a few super magnets, and it's done. This cost me around $10 here in the US. There's one other tool that I purchased from Snap-on. This necessarily doesn't have to be Snap-on, but I got the double ring ratchet, which is one side's a quarter, one side's a 5/16, and this one's got a 15-degree angle into it. Now a lot of other manufacturers make them, but this is something that I use quite often, especially on engines and all that. Sometimes you have to break higher torques and everything, and these groovings needs to be very steady. So for that reason I recommend that you buy a Snap-on if you can afford it. If you cannot, by all means, anything. Like I said, do not make this precious. The moment this becomes precious, that's when you stop becoming a good mechanic, because now you're not using a tool to get the job done. Instead, you're trying to save the tool. This is not mandatory that you buy a Snap-on one, but it's definitely a tool that you need to have in your box regardless of the make. Sometimes you might have to grind off this bit to get certain tricky area access. If by any chance you're planning in grinding one, it's a no-brainer that you should not be buying a Snap-on to grind things off. Okay, so that's just my 10 cents of advice. That will be the end of my torque wrench tool exhibition, if you'd like. But I need to make one final note, is the fact that if you can't decide whether you should buy a Snap-on tool or not, if you buy a less expensive tool and for some reason it breaks, that may be a time for you to decide whether you should upgrade that tool with a higher quality, depending on how it gave away. For example, I had a wire twister with me, which was, because I couldn't afford back in the day, a Chinese one, and after a while it gave away, and I thought this is something that I'm using often, and I used it for like a year or so. That's when it gave away, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna buy a good brand for this, and I bought a Milband. So I hope you get the idea I'm trying to get at, is that whenever a tool breaks and you try to replace it with another tool or a newer tool, that's a good point for you to decide, based on the facts that how did this tool break, whether you should upgrade it into a expensive or a higher quality tool or not. So that's just a tip to upgrade tools from my part. I hope you all enjoyed this segment, and I will do repetitive talk range segments again and again because tools is going to be a never-ending topic. I do quite very well understand that. For the time being, I hope you all enjoyed this segment, and please, if you have any questions, any comments, any reviews that you want to bring up, you're more than welcome to add your comments or questions that you need to know. Even if I do not know the answer, I will try and get the answer from a person who knows the product or who knows the technique very well. Okay, so sorry about the guys who I bored to death without having any tool enthusiasm, but I try to do something different for the next segment. But this would be just the beginning of the talk range segment. Thanks very much for joining.
Now we are back, it's all